Hey, David McGuffin here. Welcome to Travel Talk Tuesday. It is 22nd of August, 2023. I was privileged to organize a tour for the city of Mount Dora pipe and drum band. And Mount Dora is a town in Central Florida. Kind of, I guess the biggest town around is Orlando, but they have been working with me for over a year now to get together and to do a trip to Scotland. And many of them participated on the trip in Scotland, and many of them were pipers and drummers and a part of the performing band, but they also brought their friends and families along as well. And some of them arrived early and spent several days in Scotland or Ireland. Some stayed much longer and spent days in Ireland, Scotland, England, and whatever. But we had a core time of about 6 days there together, where we were in Edinburgh, Stirling, and up in the Highlands. Joe, you can hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, and we can hear you as well. So I'm going, I don't know why the video is not working, but it could be your camera or something else, but it doesn't matter because you can explain a little bit about it. Would you mind telling our folks how this all came about for you guys from Mount Dora to be a part of the Highland Games for the MacPherson Games up in Scotland?
Sure, yeah, it'd be my pleasure. When you play the pipes and drums, there's always a connection with Scotland just culturally. And so I think for a lot of our pipers and drummers and band members and their families, I think they always kind of think a little bit about, wouldn't it be great to go to Scotland to play? We had our band's 5th anniversary, it was last July, but in October we all got together. And there was a couple there, Bonnie and George MacPherson, who live close by, and they're very, very, very good friends and supporters of the band. And in a coincidence, if you want to call it that, Bonnie is the international chairperson for Clan MacPherson. So that means she's the person who coordinates the MacPherson gathering at the Newtonmore Games and pretty much oversees the clan activities. I think it's a 2 or 3 year time frame. And so we invited them to our 5th anniversary because they've been such good friends, and they made an offer to help support the band and work on a trip and help us fund a trip to go to the MacPherson Games, actually the Newtonmore Games, and the MacPherson gathering and participate in that event. And so the band thought, we all got together, the band thought that was a pretty good idea. So we really started some serious fundraising and reached out to you and it began to kind of pull those pieces together. And I'll say this before you go on and keep working on this is just a thanks to you. The band really had like 3 objectives when we took off on this thing, and I think you probably knew what most of them were. I think because it came together very well. But one of them was, to your point, traveling with families and friends and having those experiences. And in the UK overall, we had several people who went to Ireland ahead of time. We had a few that went after the trip. We had some that went to England. My wife and I went down to London for a few days after our band commitments were over. But people really took advantage of spending time with family and friends and really experiencing the culture outside of what we did together. The other thing was the band coming together. I mean, it's one thing for us to get together and have performances, which we do, and you were experiencing some of those as well too. But I think what was kind of interesting was we had this opportunity as a band, even though the jet lag I know kind of was kicking me most of the time I was there, but we had a lot of fun together. So from the time we got on the bus and didn't really have a care in the world once we got on the bus. You took care of us all the way up, stopping at Stirling along the way. And then I know you're going to talk about there's something to get ahead of you and what you want to chat about. And the Avamore and the McDonald Resort was perfect. It was a great central location. And so we had this time, as a band family, I guess, to get together as well too and see the sights. And then most importantly, we also had the opportunity in the part that you were very flexible with, because I know you didn't get to control much of it. And that was our Saturday and Sunday events where Clan MacPherson pretty much owned us and then on to Fora's that evening on Sunday. So you put those 3 things together. And I think that anybody who was on the trip with us would say that you excelled in helping us across all 3 of those things. And for that, I know the band is grateful. And I throw one other thing out just so I don't forget about it before we get to the end, is that part of the trip is the people that you're with. And obviously, our band, we get together on a regular basis. But you particularly, fit right in with the group. And I saw your little karaoke piece there, so I know you fit in with the group very well. And the other part was Jimmy, the bus driver. I know it may not seem like much, but for the people that watch your webinars and think about going on a trip, and having somebody like Jimmy who just was just a complete gentleman, very cooperative, and just as easygoing. We enjoyed having dinner with him and breakfast with him on occasion, but certainly enjoyed him taking us all over Scotland and in the Highlands, and that alone was something that I don't know, you can plan for it, but I think everybody on the trip would also say too that he helped make it if not more fun, at least comfortable, and I'll use the word fun too. He's a nice guy, so I just want to make sure I give Jimmy a shout out as well too. The bus drivers probably don't get a lot of shout outs, so.
Yeah, they play an integral part on all our tours, and boy, especially in Scotland and Ireland, you never meet a stranger, and the drivers are always there to help you. I mean, he was there early, loading, unloading, everything else. And you know what? I don't think I have a single piece of video of Jim and I and everybody else, but maybe some of you guys that are watching with the band have that too. What I'm gonna do, Joe, is let this run through, because we had a little bit, I had a little pre-night there in Edinburgh, and then we went on to Stirling. So we'll let that run for a few minutes. And then when we get up to the Aviemore part, I want you to come back in and talk a little bit about your experience there as well. Hey, David McGuffin here. I have made it to Edinburgh, Scotland. Gosh, it's about 35 degrees cooler than it was when I left Florida yesterday. It's just below 60 degrees here Fahrenheit. I'm at a Novotel right outside of town, a little bit away from the airport, and I'm going to head into the city center, but I wanted to show you here behind me, part of Americana. We have a Krispy Kreme donut right there, shop right there, hot now, and a KFC. So we're gonna hop on the tram that's just here behind me and go up into at least the new town of Edinburgh. Hope you enjoy this look around tonight, Edinburgh City Center. Okay, I've made it to downtown Edinburgh here. I'm standing in the new town, looking across to the old town here behind me. One of the museums here, and back in this direction, you can see the Scott Monument and the old hotel and Calton Hill on the end there. I went and had dinner at a place called Hawksmoor Steakhouse, one of my favorite places there. And this was it's a little pricey, about £50 to go there, but it was well worth it. Sweet potato and a filet. And this is just one of the city buses. So tomorrow I pick up my group at the airport here in Edinburgh. We head to Stirling and the castle there, the famous castle there, the Battle of Bannockburn, and the Battle of Stirling Bridge as well, and then on up to the Highlands of Aviemore. So tonight, I hope you enjoy this small or wee little look around Edinburgh. Your adventure starts right here with David McGuffin's Exploring Europe. Hey, David McGuffin here from Stirling Castle. A beautiful day here in Scotland, about 60 degrees, around the 3rd of August, I do believe. Stirling Castle dates back to the 12th century at least, and it was a fortified dwelling place and castle of the monarchs of Scotland. Today, its grounds are richly decorated with beautiful gardens here, and then the buildings here date from, the 12th century when it was first made, up through the Renaissance period and up to the 1700s. Stirling Castle is situated on a volcanic crag, which was the remainder of a glacier that had come through here from the north, gone all the way around this rigid, rough volcanic rock, and once the glaciers receded and melted away, what was left was the moraines and the valleys below, and this big volcanic crag rock where the castle resides. Hey, from Stirling Castle, David McGuffin here. Your adventure starts right here with David McGuffin's Exploring Europe. So just to pause here, I did get the message from all you Scotland folks. I just resent the link out on that Scotland tour, and I also sent it to Mr. McKee as well. And so let's try that again, and maybe you can sign on there. So from Sterling, that was our very first day. So everybody flew in. We got together around 10:30, 11 o'clock. We headed up to Sterling, which was about, maybe an hour and a half away. Crazy thing, they were having a nationwide or a worldwide bike race going through Sterling town. So they bicycle race. So they closed the town down. So we had to be shuttled up to the castle and whatnot. So it kind of impacted our walking around the town of Sterling, but we did get to go in the castle. And then we headed on up to Aviemore, which is where we set up camp for the next few days. So this is McDonald's Aviemore Resort. And I just took a photo of the room and the bathroom. You could see it's a very, very nice 4-star resort there. This was our first dinner. We had dinner at the hotel every night they were there. And it was for hotel meals. It was pretty tasty. I had that gnocchi right there with fungi with mushrooms on it. It was really good. This is our bus, our Bay Travel bus. And Jimmy is probably loading the bus over there. So I don't know, or maybe up here looking. So with a few of the band members, the pipe band members, we ventured down the hill to the town of Aviemore to this pub, and there was a bunch of kids there, local kids, they tell me, lads there that were having a great time singing. And so enjoy this for just a moment. Definitely is not a Scottish folk song. Members of the tour. Hey, good morning, everyone from Loch Ness. A beautiful day here in Scotland. I want you to meet my friend here is Nessie, just here. And let me do a spin around. I'm standing at the Clansman Hotel here on the bonny banks of Loch Ness. It's a bit cloudy, 60 degrees, but we're going to take a cruise from here down to the castle, or Crook Castle. And so hope you enjoy this little ride on the Loch Ness. We are looking for the real Nessie. But until then, enjoy my fake Nessies. Hey, your adventure starts right here with David McGuffin's Exploring Europe. Now after Loch Ness, we visit the town of Inverness and also the Culloden battlefield, which many of you will know the history of that, where the Jacobites and the Scottish Clansmen were all. Okay, we made it to beautiful Urquhart Castle here on beautiful Loch Ness. This castle is in ruins. It's been fortified here on this little promontory, looking over the loch for, gosh, well over 500 years, and was finally abandoned in the late 1600s after the final rebellion and Jacobite uprising. Now it's just a beautiful place to disembark from the cruise and to head on your adventure up here in the Highlands of Scotland. Hey, from Loch Ness, your adventure starts right here with David McGuffin's Exploring Europe. Hey, David McGuffin here. I am in Scotland in the village of Newtonmore. We're here for the Highlands Games today, the MacPherson Highland Games here in Newtonmore. Also, I found out this town is famous for the Wildcat Trek. And as you can see on the wall here right behind me, there's a painted cat, wildcat, back in this direction. So there's a scavenger hunt in town for the wildcats. So we're going to do that and check out the Highlands Games today. Our friends from the Mount Dora Pipe Band in Florida are here as a featured band at the Highlands Games, and so we look forward to hearing from them as well.
So, hope you enjoyed this look around Newton Moor and the MacPherson Highland Games. Your adventure starts right here with David McGuffin's Exploring Europe.
So I camped out on this corner for a while because we had earlier let off all the performing members of the band up the street, maybe about a mile, and they were going to parade down to this spot and to the field, basically, where the Highlands Games were to begin. So, hey, Joe, could you tell us a little bit about the members of your band, how many they are, the makeup of the people in it, the instrumentation, and how everyone fits together? How did y'all all end up together after being together for assembled for 5 years, and how did this group get started?
Those are all very, very, very good questions. The band's been together about 6 years now, and we have been invited a few times to Mount Dora to perform at their Scottish festival. And it was just a time where the city was behind kind of a Scottish culture. They have a twinning program with Foras and Scotland, and it just seemed like a time to have a discussion with them. They talked to us about the possibility of forming a pipe band. We did that. And early on, I worked closely with the city manager and Chris Carson, who's
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There they come, the city coordinator, and began to recruit. And a lot of us had been playing in other bands, so we kind of knew each other a little bit. But the city was very, very supportive of us. And in fact, we perform a lot. Last year, we had over 50 performances. And we have one event every month that we put on ourselves downtown Mount Dora called Plaid in the Park. So we've gotten together quite a bit in terms of performing, even through the COVID slowdowns and what have you. It probably brought us a little closer together. But we really, really, really love to perform. We have 37 performing members. The truth is, I've never seen them all in the same room at the same time because they're all volunteers, and so people don't always show up to everything. And we had about half of our band that joined us in Scotland for this trip here, to kind of give you an idea. But the band is a pipe band, so obviously we have a lot of bagpipers. And the greatest number of our performers or musicians are bagpipers. We have snare drummers or side drummers, as they call. The snare drums are quite a bit different in pipe band drumming, and so we appreciate the snare drummers. They kind of add the lift and the dynamics to the bagpipe music. Tenor drummers, we have several tenor drummers as well. 5 overall. Elin was with us there in Scotland to kind of give you an idea. So it looks pretty cool when you get all 5 of them together and doing their flourishing and so forth, and they add a whole nother dynamic to the ensemble. And of course, we have a bass drum as well too, which basically is what kind of holds everything together. You know that from your band experience and teaching band. You know that's what kind of keeps everybody together. So very, very, very good musicians, and I think every year they get a little better than the year before. We do compete as a band, usually 4 or 5 times a year, and typically we're in the top 3. So which is really good for our grade and for an all volunteer band in Central Florida there. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. So tell me about this group that's coming up the street now. So it's a mixture of several different groups, and so I know it's you guys, and who else?
Well, the truth is, I only know one other band, and that's as you're looking at the picture right now, excuse me, on the far right is the Blair Gowrie pipe band, and they were our contacts. They do this every year at the Newton Moor Games. Mm-hmm. And so they were our contacts, and they sent us tunes. Pardon me, I'm sorry. There were 11 different tunes that the band had to learn in order to perform with the mass bands there. Yeah. And so the far right would be the Blair Gowrie. I would be right, and our band is to the left of them. Okay. And 2 other bands. But all those other bands typically would participate in this event every year. So for them, they said it's very low key and very, very easy going. But then they've done it for 20 or 30 years as the band as well too. So they're pretty used to it. Yeah.
So I know you and I were uptight because we were trying to stick to a schedule and a regiment that day, because it had kind of been laid out to you and I, and you especially, And then you got there and it was kind of like everybody was just taking a break and when it was time to step off, it happened, right?
Yeah, yeah. Don't get too worried about it. Like I said, they've done it for decades, so they're pretty easy going about it. But yeah, but I'd say that, and you're looking at the band coming up the street, and I'm sure the video is going to show a little bit further. And and truth is, when you were saying, about a mile down the road were the games, I'm sure for all of us who were marching, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 or 9 miles is what it felt like as we were going along
It's
there.
great.
So
Always get longer.
it seemed like a long march, but very, very, very exciting, and glad. I mean, what a thrill to play with these bands from Scotland at this event.
Well, let me play this segment of it, getting to the dismantling.
Well, Pipe Major, what'd you think? Was it fun?
That was fun. We have more to go yet.
Great experience.
We have more to go, he said. So we walked another mile down the street through the pasture and where all of the games were set. That's coming up, I believe. Of Mount Dora band in the States. Spring Lane. The second mile. The tenor drummers are doing a lot of stick work. So I know that was at least 3 different marches for about 3 miles. And then at this point, the band kind of disassembled for a few moments, and we walked into the area where the Highland Games were being presented. So there was several events going on all over the place, like the caber, the big pole that you carry. There was something like a shot put. I don't know all the Scottish names for it, or people were throwing a weight over their head over like a high jump bar. There's of course individual piping competitions, and also the dancers, the Ceilidh dancers as well. So I think I have a little bit of that, But in between all of that, the pipe bands were parading in and parading out on the field. So let me let that run, and I'll let Joe talk. This is the young man. So he was the test person on all of these. A lot of food. Not Oreo. Probably a lot of us here in the States have been through like a Highlands.
Well, the weather's turned a little damp here in Newton Moore. We've had a good experience at the games. The City of Mount Dora Pipe Band had a great show marching with the MacPherson Clan Band. And so we're heading back to the buses and heading back to our resort hotel in Aviemore for a few hours until we return again to attend a Ceilidh up here. So from the MacPherson Games in Newton Moore, your adventure starts right here with David McGuffin's Exploring Europe.
So we went back to the hotel, had an early dinner, and then we returned to, Joe, Kinusi, I think is the name of the little village. And so this event was for the members of the MacPherson clan or family. Is that right?
Yeah, it's for the clan gathering. They do this every year after the games.
Okay. And so we were in a hotel there, and this was kind of the band setting up and doing a couple of photos before going inside. And then you'll see some members. I think they had just finished dinner, maybe, and then the Mount Dora band was a featured band there and did some performance of tunes that weren't a part of those 11 tunes. These were your own tune sets, I think. And so you were able to do a few things that you had rehearsed on at home as well. Is that right, Joe?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So let me let that run for just a minute.
To give them a good MacPherson welcome. So put your hands please together for the Mount Dora pipes and drums.
Hey, Joe, I know we probably recognize at least a couple of those songs, but can you give us the names of them, the 4 or 5 that you guys just played?
Now I have to think back to what they all were, but I think we came in with Scotland the Brave and
Right.
then Rowan Tree. There's another tune after that, but we cut off before we got to that. Of course, Amazing Grace was in there going into what we call well, it's Rakes and Mallet, but we call it Last Piper Standing. That's the one that kept speeding up, and that's usually a crowd pleaser. The crowd likes that as well too. And there in the middle was the Skyboat song, and that was Grace Bird. Grace is from Scotland, and so I've been calling that the Grace set with the band. There's 2 tunes, Skyboat song and Mari's Wedding, and those are the first 2 tunes that Grace had learned when she was 9 years old back in Wick, Scotland, and so we played that. But she was playing that solo there very, very nicely done as well too. So we had a great time at the Kaylee. You can see the group there. And in full disclosure, I think we were supposed to go on a little bit later in the event, and they gave us a little bit more time. They let us start a little bit early, and we left pretty much shortly after this to head back after a long day. It was cold and wet at Newton Wharf, if folks didn't notice that a little bit. But we did miss, they had a gentleman who was going to play his harmonica with his nose later that evening. And so we did miss that. But
Oh my gosh.
but you never know what you're going to have at a Kaylee like that. So, but we're very, very, very proud and pleased to perform on behalf of the MacPhersons there and give them some entertainment that night.
Yeah,
The band sounded really good.
You guys started around, I think we left around 8 o'clock in the morning, and y'all were playing a long time. It was almost 9 o'clock before we returned back to the hotel. So you had at least 3 different gigs that day to play and did a fantastic job. I can tell you that. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm proud of the group.
It was great. Okay, so that was Saturday. Sunday, we got up and you had what was called an event called Pipers Galore, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And that was in the community hall in Newton Moore. And again, most of the people that were right here in this gathering that were spectators and listeners showed up to hear another performance of you guys. So let me play a little bit of that one. Travel Talk Tuesday, folks. You're going to get your fair share and your fill of bagpipe music on this one tonight. From that event, we headed north about an hour and a half to the town of Forres. And Joe, tell us about the relationship with Mount Dora and that town.
Yeah, well, Forres, Scotland has been a twin or sister cities with Mount Dora for almost, I think, about 40 years now, and it's gone back and forth. And for quite a few years, they would share students back and forth. They'd have a couple of students from Forres that would come to Mount Dora for a few weeks, and we'd have a couple of students from Mount Dora go there. That kind of stopped around the COVID timeframe, but it hasn't returned. But we still stay connected with them. Particularly we stay connected with the pipe band, obviously from our perspective. We have a lot in common in that regard. So we follow each other pretty closely. And in fact, the City of Mount Dora cap badges and buckles that we use are very similar to the ones that Forres uses. And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, so what we did for the Forres meeting is we planned a little bit in advance knowing we were coming. And as you can remember, we were trying to kind of wedge this in after all the MacPherson visits, and I'll have one comment about travel in Scotland in a second too. But we worked it out so we could get up there and have dinner, and then go out and meet with them on the green right across from the Mosset Tavern. We'd shared some tunes back and forth in advance, so we had some tunes that we could play together. And then we played some by ourselves, and just had an incredibly nice time. Brigadier General and Lord Monroe was there. He's the president of their pipe band, and so it was a really. I guess I'm trying to choose my words here, how to say it. It was an important time for them, an important time for us. So really sharing music and friendship was what that was all about. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I'd say about travel in Scotland too is that when we came up from Avonmore, or actually, I guess it was Newtonmore, on our way up to Forres, I don't think I saw 3 people the whole time. You see a lot of beautiful country, a lot of sheep, and a handful of cows, but just breathtakingly beautiful country. But there's not a whole lot in between the towns. So it was really kind of nice. I mean, I've been to Edinburgh before, Glasgow, and places like that. But I think for Karen and I think for a lot of the people on the trip, it was a real treat to go somewhere that wasn't quite so well known and quite so commercial. Same thing with Newtonmore, very, very, very small town. And I think it really gave us a glimpse at Forres and Newtonmore and even Avonmore to a certain extent of how a lot of people in Scotland live outside the more major touristy towns, if that makes sense.
It does. And for me, as leading tours in Scotland all the time, that main road that we were on a lot of the time, that ran up from Edinburgh all the way to Inverness, is about the road that we take, and we deviate a little bit off, but no more than to Avonmore or Newtonmore. So I was so happy to go, to Newtonmore and also to Forres, because I'd never been there before at all. And so it was a great experience for me too, as a tour designer and leader and guide, getting off and seeing different places. And so that's just something that it works out very well, because who knows, in future tours to Scotland, we're probably going to venture off that big road a little bit and go through some of those small little villages, just to give you a little taste of what it is. From that point on, let me go ahead and play. This is a little bit of the Sunday cutlery dinner that we had at Mosset Tavern, and they were happy to stay open for a special. So we got there, so they had all kind of meats available. So roast, lamb, ham, and then all the fixings that go on that. So we got to have that, and then after that, out on the green, just like Joe said, they combined with the Forest City Band as well. There's all the meat. And they were bountiful on giving it to you. One of the things that impressed me about this town was this huge cathedral in the background. And it saddened me for the locals to tell me that it's not even in use anymore, because they couldn't keep it up. But it was built in the Gothic age, you can see, and so it just dominates the entire town. Okay, so Joe, real quickly, a band director, I'm gonna have to ask you a couple of technical questions here. So we see, what's this this is Marion, right?
That's married, yeah. Mhm.
See Marion playing the pipes, and explain to us how that works. I mean, she's got that bladder underneath her arm. How's all that work?
So if you're not really familiar with bagpipes, then you're right. She has a pipe bag under her arm. A lot of people, a lot of professionals and some of the more traditionalists will still use a hide bag, but most people today will use a synthetic bag. They're easier to care for. They're still airtight, and they weigh a little bit less, and just easier to handle. I think they last a little bit longer as well too. So she has this bag, and attached to the bag is a blowpipe, which you can see in her mouth. That blowpipe she blows into the bag, and once there's enough air in the bag and enough pressure, it begins to vibrate the reeds. There's 4 reeds. One is on the pipe chanter itself. I'll come back to that in a second. And then you can see the 3 drones. There's 2 tenor drones that are tuned exactly the same and should sound exactly the same. And then the bass drone, which is an octave lower, which is the long one. Each one of those has a reed way down at the bottom, right where it attaches to the bag there in the stock. And that reed will vibrate again, and that's where we get the sound coming out of the drones, which is exactly as it sounds. It's a drone. It only has 1 note. And the challenge that Marion has and every piper has is to be able to play that note with good tone. And what that means is we don't want that even the drones to be varying in their pitch. And so that means she's blowing in the bag and squeezing and working to keep the pressure in the bag at exactly the same pressure the whole time, which is probably one of the biggest challenges for most bagpipers.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
just 1 second from a band director standpoint. So unlike a clarinet or an oboe or anything else, which the embouchure plays a big deal on the tone, here it's the air in the bag and the pressure in the bag to keep that reed vibrating at the same intensity. Is that right?
Same intensity and frequency. Yeah, that's exactly right. So
Okay.
One advantage I didn't mention on the blowpipe, there's a little valve. So once you blow and take a breath, the back pressure closes that valve. So it isn't like the air comes rushing out every time. So, so it isn't that difficult, but it's pretty difficult.
Right.
And then what you can't see with her hands there is the pipe chanter itself, and that has 9 notes that we play. And so there's a lot of music we can play with that 9 notes, as you've already heard on some of the recordings you've shared with us today. And part of it's notes and part of it's embellishments, and hope that kind of explains a little bit about how we play. And
one more question for me, because I'm sure anybody else that's watching this don't really give a flip, but I know that what are the drones pitched at? What is that pitch?
Well, our particular chanters, we have matched band chanters, so they all sound exactly the same. Yep. And then we use the same reeds in all the chanters, which are matched with the chanters. And today we tune those at 482 hertz.
Okay.
Yeah, back in the day it was like 440 for a B flat in that area, but over time it's sharpened up quite a bit. So if we're 482 with a low A on the chanter, we tune our drones to that same 482. So they all sound. And if you looked at some of the chanters, you'd see tape all up and down them. And the reason is because it is, since the reeds are a natural substance and people blow differently and they're all different shapes and sizes, we have to kind of adapt each one of those chanters to make sure that the drones are still in tune. I mean, we can tune it at low A, but if B is sharp or flat, then you get that dissonance again. So what we have to do is adjust the chanter, typically with some tape. So if you ever looked at a chanter, you'll see a bunch of tape usually on the top of each one of the holes there.
And chanter, for us that aren't real familiar, that's you're holding, it's kind of like maybe let's say a recorder or a clarinet that has you say 9 different pitches that can be produced on that, and that gives you a multitude of notes to play various tunes. Yep, is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Yeah, a lot of people will say it's just like a recorder. but
Yeah.
different.
Well,
Yeah.
that's simplified, but most people know what a recorder is. Okay, let me let this run, and we will wrap this thing up pretty quickly. So after that, for the next day, we went and did a whiskey tasting at Dalwhinnie and saw how that production of Scotch was produced. Here's a little bit of the road driving back south.
Hey, David
And
McGuffin
then
here.
we
I
toured
am at
Edinburgh
Edinburgh
Castle.
Castle, standing right here with a gun, looking out across the Castle Esplanade.
I'm right to the big castle, and every year they put up these bleachers for the month of August, and there is a performance of various bands and military bands throughout the United Kingdom and guests. So this is we're leaving